Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of The Smart 7's brought to you by your Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. These days it's hard to find value for money on your weekly shop, right? Well, maybe you're doing it wrong. You need to unlock the magic of your Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. Every Friday, you can unlock up to 10 personalised discounts on things you love in the Nectar app. And the best part is that while Nectar prices are for everyone, your Nectar prices are just for you. So check your Nectar app and unlock your Nectar prices to save more now. Enjoy your own personalised discount on things you love with your Nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. The offer's for 18 plus, Nectar app required. Unlock up to 10 your Nectar prices weekly. Available in supermarkets, online and in locals with Smart Shop. T's and C's apply.
It's Saturday the 27th of September. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw the UK formally recognise Palestine, Donald Trump ranting at the United Nations, Jimmy Kimmel bouncing back, and tributes to a journalist and presenter, John Stapleton.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
But not the news.
Last Sunday saw the UK finally officially recognise the state of Palestine in advance of the UN General Assembly. Prime Minister Keir Starmer made a formal announcement.
As Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognises the state of Palestine. We recognised the state of Israel more than 75 years ago as a homeland for the Jewish people. Today, we join over 150 countries who recognise a Palestinian state also.
The announcement was coordinated with Canada and Australia and came after attempts to force the Israeli Prime Minister into a ceasefire have failed. Portugal also made an announcement of recognition on Sunday evening, and more nations were expected to make declarations on Monday at a special UN conference which was chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. In the meantime, Israel continued its assault on Gaza City, with at least 40 people killed on Sunday, and the IDF announcing it intends to target high-rise buildings in the city. The UK's announcement of solidarity with Palestine was greeted with annoyance by former Israeli PM Naftali Bennett, who said it's a cynical move that won't make any difference.
It's also hollow because it has absolutely no implication on the ground. We are already providing unlimited aid into Gaza. It's not going to form a Palestinian state. It's not going to change anything. It's a symbolic, empty gesture.
Monday saw the UN General Assembly open in New York at a time of global crisis. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres struck a sombre note as he opened proceedings.
At this moment, the principles of the United Nations are under assault as never before. To meet these challenges, we must not only defend the United Nations, we must strengthen it to ensure that we can deliver for people everywhere.
The Assembly ran all weekend. France joined the UK, Australia, Canada and Portugal on Monday in recognising the state of Palestine. French President Macron spoke at the UN, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all the hostages, saying the world can no longer wait.
the time has come. True to the historic commitment of my country to the Middle East, to peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is why I declare that today France recognises the state of Palestine.
He also proposed an international stabilisation mission in Gaza and suggested French troops would take part. In the meantime, Israel intensified its bombardment of Gaza City, forcing 2 hospitals to close on Tuesday. Donald Trump has been clear that he disagrees with the decision to recognise Palestine and sees it as a reward for Hamas. International Affairs Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, Caroline Glick, told Sky News that she was disappointed at the UK's role in recognising a state that she says doesn't exist.
They used to actually have a policy that made some sense, which was that we would recognise a Palestinian state that abjured terrorism, that had a normal working government, that was agreed upon by the Israeli government. But they just said, you know what, to heck with all of those.
A memorial service for Charlie Kirk, the right-wing influencer, was held on Sunday in Arizona's State Farm Stadium, which holds over 70,000 people. President Trump, along with the Vice President J.D. Vance and Kirk's widow Erica, all attended. The death of Kirk has sparked a crackdown on free speech in the US, with the axing of Jimmy Kimmel's show sparking a dramatic drop in ABC and Disney's stock price on Friday, and Democrats cancelling subscriptions in protest. Speaking at the memorial, Trump praised Kirk, calling him a martyr, but had a sharply different view on the world.
He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
US President was in New York on Tuesday to address world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly. His speech, however, was more like one of his campaign rallies than the calm, measured performance you might expect from the leader of the free world. He spoke at length about his ability to stop wars and wondered why the UN hadn't called him to congratulate him. And he told the assembled leaders and diplomats that because of immigration, their countries were going to hell.
I see it. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble, and nobody's doing anything to change it. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it.
That was one of many false claims in Trump's speech, and he had angry words for London's Mayor Sadiq Khan, who he suggested is trying to introduce Sharia law to England's capital city. He also ranted at length about what he called the globalist hoax of climate change.
They said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's the greatest con job ever made by stupid people. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail.
Donald Trump's fiery speech at the United Nations continued to cause controversy on Wednesday. Trump said he believed his speech was very well received, but the reaction from world leaders was quite different. One of Trump's targets in his rambling rant was London, and in particular Mayor Sadiq Khan, who has become a beacon for criticism for MAGA Republicans, inspired in part by Nigel Farage. Trump suggested London would soon be under Sharia law, and Sadiq Khan spoke up on London's behalf on Wednesday.
President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic.
With the UK working hard to stay on Donald Trump's good side to protect the trade deal and the new tech deal that Labour have agreed with the White House, Work and Pension Secretary Pat McFadden was trying to be diplomatic.
I just think it's a misreading of our great capital city. This is a big asset to the United Kingdom. It's known all over the world. London's a great city. I'm proud of it as our capital city, and I think it's really important to the UK.
European nations scrambled aircraft last weekend as Russia continued to escalate tensions in its war on Ukraine. Saturday night saw another massive attack on Ukraine, and Poland launched fighter jets, while Sunday saw German fighters escort a Russian spy plane away from the Baltic Sea. Estonia called an emergency UN Security Council meeting over an incident where Russian jets invaded Estonia's airspace, and US President Donald Trump said he didn't like it and agreed the US would defend Poland and the Baltic states. His Ukraine envoy, former General Keith Kellogg, was in Kyiv last weekend, and he says that Putin is just not interested in peace.
Putin knows that if he goes to a ceasefire, once the shooting stops, it's going to be really hard to restart it again. So my preference is always a ceasefire, but President Trump would like to go to a peace deal first. That's going to be hard to get to. Putin doesn't want to go there yet. Putin thinks he can win militarily. I don't think he can.
Monday also saw the UN Security Council meet to discuss Russia's repeated incursions into European allies' airspace. Estonia had called a meeting after Russian jets crossed their border on Friday, and there was strong pushback too from Poland and warnings that any future incursions will see the Russian planes shot down.
Russia's recklessness is escalating. At best, these latest acts are dangerous and reckless. At worst, they are a deliberate attempt to undermine the territorial integrity of sovereign nations and European security.
After his rambling address to the UN General Assembly, Donald Trump held a series of meetings with leaders from around the world. French President Macron, Turkish President Erdogan and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen all spoke with the US President on issues including Gaza and Ukraine. He also met for an hour with Ukrainian President Zelensky, which seemed to go well, with Trump complimenting Ukraine's army for holding back Russia for 3.5 years. In fact, he even suggested that Ukraine could win back all its territory in a major shift of tone, which both surprised and delighted Zelensky. The Ukrainian president appeared on Fox News to thank Trump and warn that Putin needs to be stopped.
It's not about territories, it's about the position of Putin. He will continue. If we will give them more that he really wants, he will continue. So the question how to stop the war is just to stop Putin's ambitions, to change his position to this war.
The UN General Assembly continued in New York on Wednesday with a potentially significant breakthrough on climate change. The day after US President Donald Trump mocked what he called the green scam, Chinese leader Xi Jinping announced via video link that China is taking steps to reduce its emissions by up to 10% over the next 10 years. Ukrainian President Zelensky also addressed the Assembly, and he was critical of the lack of support from the body, annoyed in particular that Russia had used its veto on the Security Council to protect itself from any consequences.
Even during bloodshed, there isn't a single international institution that can truly stop it. That's how weak these institutions have become.
Former NATO Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, General Sir Richard Sheriff, also was critical of his own organisation, warning that unless NATO gets tough with Russian incursions on its airspace, Putin will never change his behaviour.
Why did it fail? Because deterrence failed. And because Russia believes that it can get away with it. And the only way that is going to stop is when NATO steps up to the mark. And if that means shooting down Russian aircraft, so be it.
Thursday saw US Vice President J.D. Vance weigh in on Ukraine's side, warning Vladimir Putin that Donald Trump has become incredibly impatient and that he doesn't feel like Russia is putting enough on the table to end the war. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was also warning his Russian counterpart that Russia needs to take steps towards peace. Ukrainian President Zelensky is delighted with the turnaround, and he had a warning of his own for Putin on Thursday.
First of all, they have to know where their bomb shelters are. If they will not stop the war, they will need it.
Russia has pushed back, with Foreign Minister Lavrov denouncing what he called unacceptable schemes by Ukraine's European allies. But EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was also talking tough when it comes to European airspace.
We have to defend every square centimetre of the territory, and that means if there's an intrusion in the airspace, after warning, after being very clear, of course the option of shooting down a fighter jet is on the table.
Last weekend marked the beginning of political conference season, with the Lib Dems gathering in Bournemouth for their annual event. Delegates attending were shown results from a poll conducted by think tank More in Common, which suggested that the party has potential to win more seats, but only if they drop the stunts that leader Ed Davey has become famous for. More than 60% of voters think that in the challenging times we live in, Davey's light-hearted approach is irrelevant, but the man himself was defending his attempts to look on the bright side.
Politics can be a bit depressing at the moment, a bit divisive. And I think a little bit of joy is not a bad thing, a bit of a smile.
He's focused on the threat posed by reform in the far right, however, and the party is proposing that a national emergency needs to be called over the asylum crisis to allow the system to be reset and backlogs cleared. He was also very firm in his views on Elon Musk after the Tesla CEO's apparent call to violence at the Unite the Nation march organised by Tommy Robinson. Davey says Ofcom should take action not just over the speech but also over the content available on X.
It's going to hit him in his pocket. Who cares? I'm interested in the safety of our children, and I think everybody should be, and that's why he should be prosecuted.
Monday saw day 2 of the Lib Dems conference in Bournemouth, where despite polling that shows people are tired of their eye-catching stunts, they handed out a build-your-own Nigel Farage Lego kit to journalists. The kit included a MAGA hat and a pint glass, and the tone of the conference seemed to be dominated by anxiety over the polling strength of the Reform Party. They were also busy trying to reclaim the English flag, with former leader Tim Farron literally wrapping himself in a flag on stage. Sir Ed Davey said the Lib Dems have a moral duty to defeat reform, and he didn't rule out a potential coalition with Labour when quizzed about it on the Today Show.
My job is to beat reform. I've shown you evidence that we've already started that job. I've been deeply disappointed by the Labour government. I think they've failed so many people. What I want to do is make sure we have as many Liberal Democrat seats and Liberal Democrat votes at the next election.
Lib Dems leader Sir Ed Davey gave his official conference speech on Tuesday afternoon, pledging to win more seats than the Tories.
We are in a battle for the very future of our country. If you believe in decency, tolerance and the rule of law, join us, because we believe in the British people. We love our country, and together we can change it for good.
The conference was seen as a strong focus on the threat posed by Nigel Farage and his Reform Party, with Davey seeking to portray the Lib Dems as a healthy and patriotic alternative. He returned to his attacks on tech billionaire Elon Musk too, criticising him for his interference in UK politics and his failure to regulate or moderate dangerous content on his X platform.
It's all about Musk's ego, his power and his wealth. He rails against the Online Safety Act because Musk
wants to run his social media platform without taking any responsibility for the terrible harm it is causing.
Still to come in the Standout 7 in association with Metro. Donald Trump makes an announcement on autism and Jimmy Kimmel returns.
Right after this.
Hey, it's Jamie East here from the Smart 7, and today's episode's brought to you by Pension Bee and their award-winning Pension Confident podcast. Getting your head around pensions might seem overwhelming, but that's where Pension Bee comes in. They're on a mission to build pension confidence. So whether you're just starting on your pension journey, you're nearing retirement, or like me, you're somewhere a little bit in between, then you should have a listen to the Pension Confident podcast. It's an award-winning podcast that digs into topics that really matter with the help of financial experts. So that could be the basics of how pensions, ISAs or mortgages work, and things like how to get started on saving for a happy retirement. And a bit like the Smart 7 does with the news, they break down complex pensions finance into language that we can all understand. You can listen or download the Pension Confident podcast wherever you get your podcast from, or you can watch the episodes on YouTube. And remember, anything discussed on the podcast shouldn't be regarded as financial or legal advice, and when investing, your capital is at risk.
Welcome back.
Donald Trump's first 8 months in his second term have been truly exhausting, but the most damaging appointment in the Trump era may be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the US Secretary of Health. RFK has been on a one-man crusade to undermine vaccines, and his latest announcement on Monday was to declare that they found a cause for autism, or at least what they say is a link to medication, acetaminophen, also known as Tylenol. Medical experts, including the British health regulator MHRA, have said that there is no evidence to link the use of paracetamol during pregnancy with autism, and that it is recommended for pain relief. At a White House press conference on Monday, Trump urged pregnant women not to take the drug.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. And don't give it to your child after your child is born.
An expert in autism told the New York Times on Tuesday that listening to Donald Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. make their much-hyped autism announcement was one of the most difficult days of her career. Helen Tager-Flusberg says she was shocked by the lack of any evidence for statements made by Trump in particular. He ranted at pregnant women, urging them to not take Tylenol, although there is no evidence that the drug can cause any harm or have any impact on autism. Experts acknowledge that there were more diagnosed cases of autism, but they say that is down to better and earlier assessments. Dr. Monique Botha is an associate professor in psychology at Durham University, and she said no one should be taking medical advice from the US president.
You don't expect such genuinely terrible health information coming out of a government's office. Women shouldn't follow the advice of someone who isn't going to be there to pick up the pieces afterwards.
Jimmy Kimmel's late-night talk show was hastily pulled off the ABC network last week after Kimmel made a relatively mild joke about President Trump's reaction to the death of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk. His indefinite suspension sparked a firestorm of criticism for ABC and parent company Disney, with boycotts and celebrities speaking out in defence of free speech. ABC has now relented following discussions with The Kimmel Show, and it returned on Tuesday evening, but not to all the network stations it was on before. Even with less stations, it got a record audience of over 6 million people on Tuesday night. Kimmel was unapologetic, and the show included Robert De Niro playing the part of FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr, and a series of jokes aimed directly at Trump.
He did his best to cancel me. Instead, he forced millions of people to watch the show. That backfired bigly. He might have to release the Epstein files to distract us from this now.
The death was announced on Sunday of veteran TV presenter and journalist John Stapleton. He had been battling Parkinson's disease and died in hospital aged 79. He was a familiar face as anchor of Good Morning Britain, along with the BBC's Watchdog and ITV topical discussion show The Time, The Place. There were tributes from his former GMB colleagues and from former LBC host Sanjita Miska, who said he was a great journalist and role model and gentleman. BBC 5 Live presenter Nicky Campbell also had fond memories of working with him.
John was a proper journalist. He came through that kind of inky-fingered newspaper tradition when newspapers were king. That's where he learned his trade. And that came through in his judgment and his journalism and his questions. And the words nice and best don't often go together. But he was one of the nicest and he was one of the very best.
John Stapleton spoke about his Parkinson's diagnosis on GMB back in October 2024. Rest in peace, John.
Parkinson's is here with me now for the rest of my life. It's often the first thing I think about when I wake up because, like, getting dressed, because of the tremor. You get the tremor is one of the first signs. I didn't mention that, did I? Yeah, that's like mine's not too bad at the moment, but things like putting your shirt on this morning takes a lot longer than...
Or doing the buttons up.
Doing the buttons up, yeah.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
Every day there's a new challenge to face. So meet Trimble, the technology company that connects your physical and digital worlds, allowing you to make decisions and take intelligent action to get the hard work done. And the best part, you can do it all faster than you've ever thought possible. Check them out at Trimble.com. You ready to turn data points into decision points or turn deadlines into finish lines? How about turning possibilities into profits? Then turn to Trimble.